concerning the response to the stabbing of Hatun Tash. First of all, the stabbing of Hatun Tash, if anybody sees the video, it was absolutely unbelievable because the guy who wanted to stab her, he wanted to kill her, there's no doubt about it. Secondly, one of the most disgusting things is the way the police didn't react fast enough. Thirdly, the media not reporting because of pressure. Sky News, Australia reported it, RT News, but generally the media have shied away from the issue. But the other disgusting thing is the response of Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah concerning the stabbing of Hatun, because I believe they've been part of the problem. They've been part of encouraging this kind of mentality. So Mohammed Hijab was on his video saying how disgusting this attack was. It was terrible. It was horrible. I'm not going to go to Speaker's Corner for 30 days out of again because I want to challenge the police because they've not done their job and all the rest of it. It's complete hypocrisy because he was on video condemning a fellow Muslim who was pro-Israel. And that condemnation that he did to his fellow Muslim led to this Muslim's house being invaded by a bunch of Islamic thugs who terrorized this Muslim and his family. And that was a direct result of the hate-spilling speech of Mohammed Hijab towards even a fellow Muslim who seemed to be pro-Israel concerning the occupation of Palestine. Secondly, Mohammed Hijab has showed absolutely no respect towards Hatun and been involved in being disrespectful to the police when the police came and surrounded Hatun a few weeks ago when someone slapped Hatun. And Mohammed Hijab was totally disrespectful to Hatun and cajoling and encouraging his fellow Muslim men in misogyny who were being aggressive towards Hatun. That was only a few weeks ago, so he's completely a hypocrite. And Ali Dawah is the same. He's a complete hypocrite because he's on video being around Muslim men who were bullying Hatun weeks ago. On many occasions he's been around Muslim men who've been abusive and bullying Hatun, and he's there smiling, laughing, allowing his fellow Muslim men and youth to be abusive towards Hatun. And the same with Mohammed Hijab. And then they have the cheek to turn around and say, well, maybe this is not about free speech. Maybe this is all about maybe people hating Islam. And the issue is that whatever you think of Hatun, she did not deserve this attack. And the Muslim apologists are spinning this to try and gain some kind of political and media traction. And I think it's disgusting. I think Ali Dawah, you need to just keep your mouth shut because you have been on many occasions in the midst of Islamic youth and men who have been abusive and aggressive towards Hatun, and you've been there amongst them, and you've been cajoling them and encouraged them and smiling while it's been going on. And the same with you, Mohammed Hijab. And then, so in a way, your leadership has encouraged that kind of attitude towards Hatun. And now it's led to violence, and then you try to distance yourself away as if you are the innocent ones and that you've not been involved in any kind of pushing aggressive attitude towards Hatun. It's hypocrisy. It's total hypocrisy. And you might have this nice, sweet, intellectual persona that you try to present on your YouTube channels, But I've seen on your channel, Mohammed Hijab, where you've clearly stated you're a follower and supporter of Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. So you've got not a leg to stand on, you know. And you're saying it was a disgusting attack on a defenseless woman. You two have allowed constant verbal and physical aggression towards Hatun, you two. And you've never once, when that's been going on against Hatun in the past, you've never once spoke out against it. You've never once protected her. You've never once surrounded her and protected her. You've never once. You've always been smiling and encouraging your fellow Muslim youth and men to be aggressive towards her. You're on camera time and time again over a number of years where that has happened. So you have not got a leg to stand on. You have encouraged misogyny against her. And this idea that, or if it was found out the guy was not a Muslim and it's not really about free speech, it's about attacking Islam, is total, absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The fact of the matter is that Speaker's Corner is about freedom of speech. And the fact of the matter is there has been constant bullying at Speaker's Corner by Muslims. The vast majority of people that turn up there are Muslim men. And these Muslim men are very aggressive, and they have been on record of being abusive to many, many people. This idea that Hatun was slapped by a Christian, total taqiyya, that what Christian would slap Hatun? It's absolute nonsense. Taqiyya. How can you be going around saying such nonsense, Ali Dawah? Absolute disgusting. You've no shame. Absolutely no shame, Ali Dawah. The same with you, Mohammed Hijab. You are the cowards. You are the cowards. Mohammed Hijab, you're the coward. Ali Dawah, you're the cowards because you've never had the guts to have a proper debate and discussion with Hatun on the issue of holes in the Quran, that the Quran has been corrupted. You've never had the guts to have a proper intellectual debate with her. And maybe if you'd have had a proper intellectual debate with her and promoted decency and debate and discussion, maybe this attack wouldn't have happened. But you refused to debate her. Instead, you allowed the mobs every week to be abusive towards her, when you could have just said, okay, let's have a nice intellectual discussion and debate and treat her with respect and say, okay, I don't agree with what you're saying, or don't agree with what you're doing, I don't agree with the Charlie Hebdo, but I'll debate you. And you would have promoted decency. You would have been promoting intellectual discussion and debate, but you never did that. Instead, you sneered, you mocked, you jeered, you encouraged the mob to surround her time and time again, to be abusive towards her. You two. You two. So you two are the cowards. You are slimy. You are taqiyya to the brim. You are taqiyya to the brim, both of you. You are the biggest hypocrites in that Speaker's Corner from an Islamic point of view. You have no courage. You have no intellectual credibility. Just because you get support from, I don't know where you get your support, but I bet if we've traced your support, that some of that support is from places that the police would not be happy about, counter-terrorism would not be happy about. Some of your friends who you're in contact with, would counter-terrorism be happy about it? What happened with Paul Williams a few years ago, a Muslim apologist who called you all out and said to you all that why you ISIS sympathizers and your Muslim apologist friends cut him off out of their blogs because they didn't like what he was saying. I didn't hear you standing up for Paul Williams. I didn't hear you, Ali Dawah, standing up for Paul Williams. I didn't hear you, Mohammed Hijab, standing up for Paul Williams when he was calling out your fellow Muslim apologists for being ISIS supporters. I didn't see you both making videos about that. So you're a bunch of hypocrites, lads. Sorry to say. You're slimy. You know how to play the YouTube and the Instagram and the Twitter game and the Facebook game. You know how to do taqiyya to perfection. But the reality is, you two were involved in encouraging aggression towards Hatun, both of you, because you're on video in crowds and your people are laughing at them, mocking her, laughing at her, being aggressive to her, even physically, and you two are on record in those crowds sneering, laughing, mocking her as well. When you could have sat her down, bought her a coffee and had an intellectual discussion and taught your youth and your Muslim men in Speaker's Corner, look, we don't agree with the way she is, don't agree with what she's doing, but look, let's show how we can be better people. We'll have a debate and discussion. You didn't do that, did you? And then this happened. It was inevitable it was going to happen. And it is about free speech. It's not picking on Islam, it's about free speech. And I challenge you, Mohammed Hijab, I challenge you, Ali Dawah, I challenge anybody on the internet right now to read your Quran and look at the verses at the end, the verses that were produced in the Quran, the later verses, not the early verses, but the later verses. Do your research on the later verses. There's over 104 or more verses on using the sword in Islam in the Quran. Over 100 verses. Many of them verses are in the latter verses of the Quran, which overturn the early verses. The early verses saying like sweet things like be nice to Christians. Then the later verses, it's all like crucify Christians. And in those later verses, it's very, very clear that Islam in the Quran does not teach free speech. It says there is no compulsion in Islam, but if you read the later verses in the Quran, you read them all, and it's very, very clear that you can use physical violence to take out your opponents. And we also know the history of the hadiths, and if we look at the hadiths, there are hadiths where it shows that Muhammad was quite happy in encouraging assassinations against people who were speaking out against him or did not agree with him. So it is about free speech, and it's about the fact that Islam in the West cannot sit down and have a proper conversation, that there are people within Islam, because of Islamic teaching, will respond in a violent way. And whether you agree with Hatun or not, she's won that argument. But the media and the politicians, they don't want to engage with it. They push it under the carpet. But one day the chickens will come home to roost. One day what you sow you will reap. And in the end, one day there will be Sharia law in the UK, because the British public, the British establishment refused to deal with this issue. And that is why it's important to this issue with Hatun. Whether you agree with her or not wearing a t-shirt, I think she should. I understand why she's doing it. I understand perfectly why she's doing it. And politically, she has a right to do that. From my point of view, we preach the gospel and we get on with the preaching. But she wanted to make a point, and she's made her point. And so let's get it right. You know, in the UK, we have freedom of speech to preach and critique each other's views. Christianity, from the new atheists, from Christopher Hitchens and Dawkins and Sam Harris and these people, was pulverized. Horrible things said about Christianity. But you don't see any Christian pulling out a knife and trying to stab Richard Dawkins and things like that. Because there's no teaching in Christianity from Jesus about killing your opponents and silencing them. But there is teaching in the Quran. There is teaching in the Hadiths. And that's a fact. So it's not a case of racism. There are many, many good Muslims. Many lovely Muslims. I remember one of my aunties, a Muslim couple next door, would make some lovely rice for my auntie every couple of days. You know, I remember street preaching, and an elderly Muslim man sent his child, who was about 10, to the shop to buy me some water. So there's some lovely Muslims. It's not picking on Muslims or being racist. There's some lovely Muslims. But the fact of the matter is, these people who do these kind of things are getting it from a source. They're getting it from preachers and imams who are teaching from the Quran this kind of hatred. And that's the fact. And that's what you're not dealing with. So don't try to be pretty boy Ali Dawah, pretty boy Mohammed Hijab, intellectual Mohammed Hijab, intellectual Ali Dawah. The fact of the matter is, you two are thugs masquerading as pseudo pop idol intellectuals. And that's the fact. And people can go and watch video after video after video. Yeah, you've had these debates, but look at the videos where you're surrounding Hatun with your Muslim people, Muslim youth and men, and see how those Muslim men and youth have been aggressive towards her, and look at what your reaction was, laughing at her, mocking her, and encouraging your fellow Muslim men and youth to be abusive towards her. And you're on camera time and time again for doing that, and people can go and research it themselves. Alright, so you're done, both of you. Alright, take care and goodbye, and keep your hypocrisy to yourself. Bye bye.